Tobago Jazz Experience takes place from April 27th through to the 29th. Joining us from Tobago's studio, we have the Executive Chairman of the Tobago Festivals Commission, George Leacock, and the Quality Control Coordinator, Jared Primer. Gentlemen, good morning and welcome.
Morning. Very good morning to you. Infamous? That's what you really meant to say?
Yes, it is infamous.
All right, so let me sidetrack you completely by telling you that the fast ferry went to Trinidad yesterday morning in 2 hours and 15 minutes. Everybody had a wonderful ride.
Yes.
There were 300 people on board and 50 cars, and coming back to Tobago, there were 100 plus cars, 350 persons, and they made it back up in 2 hours and 45 minutes.
Great. So how do you feel about that?
How is that for arbitrary comments like infamous?
How do you feel about these developments, Mr. Leacock?
I'm blissful. I'm happy. I'm ecstatic. Did I say ecstatic?
Yeah, but that's all right.
You're allowed to make up one word.
You're allowed to do that.
For conversation. Yeah, the thing about it is, of course, the final bugbear that we've had is people's ability to get to Tobago for the festival.
Yes.
And with the boat running, and of course with the extra flight on, that should be part of the history of the discussion. And it's a question of having the Port Authority and the airlines publish the necessary schedules, the extra flights, and hopefully extra sailings and all of that. That put us in a position to get people here to enjoy, of course, Neo, Fantasia, Anthony Hamilton, Tanya Stevens, and
Taurus
Riley.
Yeah.
Wow.
To say nothing of the Tobago All-Star Band, Renegades, Cats and Jammers, God and Night. Come, Jared, man, you need to get some of this.
Freetown Collective. We have 5-Star Keel from Trinidad, of course, bringing his soca styles to the festival as well. Our pan duo of Shaquille and Leandro, amazing panelists from Tobago. So we really have a star-studded cast this year.
Yeah.
Definitely. Infamous still? Yeah.
Yes, I'm telling him that. Now, Mr. Primer, a very important question, well, for me personally as well. How long before do you have to book artists like these?
Well, in the regular situation, circumstance and so on, you would try to acquire your artists as soon as perhaps 9 to 12 months in advance in most cases. You know, because these artists, they would have had schedules and bookings from as early as a year and a half and so on in advance. I would say that we were very fortunate to acquire our cast, and we're really excited about who we have to show to the audience. Neo coming off of his The Gentleman Tour, and of course Fantasia making great waves. So we really expect to have a great show on the 28th. I mean, that's correct. You said it. 27th to 29th, it's the 28th, Saturday 28th.
Sure.
And Sunday 29th, with Jazz in the East happening on Saturday 28th. And of course, our international night at Pigeon Point, that's on Sunday 29th.
Great. Now, how are preparations coming along?
Things are going with great pace, let me say that. I actually came off of coming out of studio with doing some more work in terms of promotions and so on. Just after 1 this morning, and I'm back here in studio again. So the team is working really, really hard. And well, Mr. Leacock is here, so Mr. Leacock can attest to the kind of hours that we are putting in, because we are committed to ensuring that all our I's are dotted, our T's are crossed, and that everything is going to be as covered as we can in preparation for the 28th and 29th.
Great. So, Mr. Leacock, how do you feel about this pace of productivity that you're currently at?
This is what we live for. After all, we're infamous. We really, this is when the adrenaline gets flowing, and you don't really, need as much rest. Trust me, sleep and so on is overrated.
It's a concept.
It's a concept we live by. But we have also some, fortunate little twerks. Romano de Souza, a Tobagonian by birth. And I almost said by both, and I'm sure that would qualify perfectly as a Freudian slip, is with us in Tobago. He is a traveling sound engineer, has traveled with several performers, including in particular Fantasia and Neo. So we have advanced information, as you'd call it, an insight on what are the technical requirements for these persons. And that gives us a lot of an advantage because our big thing is leaving a lasting impression in terms of our ability to deliver a high quality show with very high production values in terms of the sound quality and all of that, and also in terms of the experience that people will have at the venue. You know, one of the issues with Pigeon Point is getting out of Pigeon Point post-event. And we're going to do that in a couple of ways. There's going to be a shuttle system.
Okay.
And we are ensuring that nobody parks in the turnaround for the shuttle, so the shuttle will be able to operate very, very smoothly. And in addition, Oscar B., who you know, will be the ringleader or ringmaster of an event, or almost post-event, if you want to call it that. That we basically going to cause a jump up out of Pigeon Point. There's going to be some steel band music, some other music, and all of that. So that if you want to leave Pigeon Point in the first wave of individuals that leave by the shuttle, get back to your car, maybe you taking one of the late flights back to Trinidad on the very same night, you know, as soon as the last note is struck on the show, that's your opportunity to get out. But maybe half an hour or so after that, we're going to come out and we're going to come out having some fun.
Great.
As a prelude to the second carnival, maybe?
As a prelude to the second carnival, which will take place during the Heritage Festival.
Definitely.
Old Time Carnival at Plymouth, but don't get me started.
Now, Mr. Primer.
Infamous.
You'll never let that go. In terms of achieving high quality lighting, stage side, all these things, when we talk about finance and the current downturn in the economy, how are you all able to work around those challenges to achieve such high quality production?
Well, in the first instance, starting with the engagement of the artists, I'm not at liberty to say what the fees paid to each individual artist. There will be a time for that, and I suspect that the nation will be quite surprised that even operating with the narrow window that we were operating, and I think that might have been responsible for us taking a little bit of extra time, the nation will be surprised at the cost that we paid for the artists in comparison to what was paid in the past, and I'm not really, you know, looking to look backward too much at all. In addition, all of our vendors and providers are living and operating in Trinidad and Tobago and are aware of the current situation in Trinidad and Tobago. And we're working with people and people working with us, particularly when you treat with very professional people. We put it on the table and say, listen, this is what we are able to afford in this year. Individuals will tell you, we're going to try to make it work. But more than that, we understand that our professional reputations are in line, and if we have to go a little beyond what we actually being paid for to ensure that we don't embarrass ourselves, quite frankly, that's what's going to happen.
I was also going to say that it also speaks to the investment, and I would speak to this, that our local vendors have in the event and in the events that we have in Tobago. It speaks to our investment in boosting our tourism product. So we really had that kind of cordial kind of discussion with our vendors, and they are, as Mr. Leacock said, they're on board to really ensure that we, no matter what, we put the event first and we're going to have a great event.
Now, Mr. Leacock, in a recent interview, you mentioned that the primary market for this year's show was Trinidad and not necessarily the international market. I'd like you to comment a little bit further on that and also explain why this shift and how has this strategy worked thus far?
Well, it's basically practical realization. Let me go back to the fundamentals that we spoke about. We need to have the Tobago Jazz Festival this year for 3 reasons. One, we have a historical market that travels to Tobago for the Jazz Festival, and they are not interested in even who is performing. They're coming to Tobago for the Jazz Festival. Two, we have to hold our space on the international calendar. I heard somebody try to rubbish that, somebody who should know better. But the fact of the matter is that we are bookended by Jamaica, the Jamaica Carnival, and St. Lucia. And particularly next year with Carnival being later and a shorter season, if you lose your space on the calendar between now and next year, you'd have difficulty finding a day that is a clear day where you can attract some travel and participation in the event and so on, right? And the third reason is, quite frankly, the Tobago Hotel Assembly has decided to do something that will give a shot in the arm to the tourism industry at every level, from service providers right up through the hoteliers and everything like that. So the festival is on. We always knew we were operating with a small window, and we sought out industry partners who had the kind of knack of getting around the challenges that we have. Practical reality is a significant market for Tobago always is Trinidad, and a significant market for the Jazz Festival has always been Trinidad. That we would at this point make a significant investment in North America or Europe or something with the expectation that in the short time people would come is impractical. However, let me give a shout out to one of our major sponsors, and that's Flow. And with the guidance of our new Director of Tourism in Tobago, we have done significant placements, courtesy Flow, in all of their Caribbean markets, with an emphasis on those markets that have direct flights to Trinidad and Tobago on the Jazz Festival. And the information is out there, so we're hoping that that does provoke some kind of response. But, I recently deceased Secretary for Sport in the Tobago House of Assembly, George Hatcher, when I worked with him as sports officer in the Assembly, always said that Tobago has a huge market sitting right next door. Nobody needs a visa, nobody needs a passport, and it's called Trinidad.
Yes, that's a great point there, Mr. Leacock. And my final question to you, Mr. Primer, and also closing comments. How are ticket sales and hotel occupancies at this time?
Well, from all reports, things have picked up. And that's why I guess Mr. Leacock started off by saying he's ecstatic, he's pleased. We really don't want to share too much in terms of figures, but we are very pleased with the reports that we have. And we do expect to have a packed venue. Let me just say that, so maybe you're getting some hints as to how we really feel about what's happening in Tobago.
Yes.
So ticket sales are going well, and we want to remind everyone that you can get your tickets at all NLCB outlets nationwide. And you can log on to www.suntix.com. The tickets are there. Purchase your tickets as soon as you can. Make sure you get your boat and plane tickets. Come to Tobago.
Great. And Mr. Leacock, your closing comments, sir.
I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, because you realize that I have been like the Pied Piper for the morning. But let me say that we have to give some consideration at some point to cut off the sale of VIP tickets. And that is to ensure that we provide a quality experience for those persons who choose to have VIP tickets. I think that the difference between the price of the VIP ticket and the regular ticket is a little bit narrow. So a lot of people, it seems, from what we're looking at, are favoring the VIP tickets over the regular tickets. So a word to persons who are looking to purchase VIP tickets in particular, pick up your tickets early, because we may have to enforce a cutoff point.
Great. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Such a pleasure chatting with you always. We've been chatting with Mr. George Leacock and Jared Primer.